Hello and a very warm welcome into Raising the Dots, connecting you with the people, ideas and technology reshaping the future of Braille and tactile literacy. I'm your host, Dave Williams. Coming up this time on Raising the Dots, Innovation and Advocacy. We'll be speaking with Harpo about the new BraillePen 24, built around DOT's D3 cell technology. And we'll also be speaking with Scott Thornhill, the Executive Director of the American Council of the Blind. That's all to come this time on Raising the Dots. Before we get started this month, I want to take a moment to share with you the Global Declaration on Braille Literacy in Education, which is a joint initiative of the International Council for the Education of People with Visual Impairment, ICEVI, and the World Blind Union, WBU, who are calling on governments, education systems, organisations and communities to recognise Braille literacy as a fundamental human right and an essential component of inclusive education. Grounded in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, CRPD, the Declaration advocates for equitable access to quality Braille instruction, accessible learning materials, trained teachers, and assistive technologies. ICEVI and WBU invite organisations and individuals worldwide to endorse the Declaration and support the global advancement of Braille literacy. You can find out more on the icevi.org website, and we will of course include that link in our show notes. You're listening to Raising the Dots, connecting you with the people, ideas and technology reshaping the world of Braille and tactile literacy. Harpo is a familiar name in the Braille technology world, many products over the years. Their latest innovation is the BraillePen 24, a portable 24-cell Braille note taker built around the cells from DOT. And to help us learn more, we're joined by Jarek from Harpo. Welcome into the podcast, Jarek. Good to have you with us.
Hello, I'm the CEO at Harpo and the founder of the company too.
Just before we talk about the BraillePen, just tell us something about Harpo, how you got started and the journey so far.
We started before the times changed in Poland with a company that had in view computers. But since I employed my friend who was low in vision, now we say visually impaired, I decided to help him. And that's how we started our journey into the Braille and technology. First, we thought that we should do some speech synthesizers, which we finally did for Polish. Then we did more devices. We took some ideas from the American markets. So we made our own reading edge version for Poland. And then we thought that, everyone in our circle has a personal organizer in his pocket. Let's start with that. At that point, there was no Bluetooth. That's why we started projects. How to connect one to the other, how to make it speak, how to make the device accessible for the blind persons. And Bluetooth introduction later only solved our problems, and that's how we made the first BraillePen. Now we are at the BraillePen era. That's already like 30 years ago started. At that time, I just went to the first site city with the first BraillePen that was only a keyboard, Braille keyboard, on my chest and showing to everyone because we were not able to rent our own stand at the show. And step by step, we made through all the BraillePens, BraillePen 12, all the versions of BraillePen 14, and now we do BraillePen 24.
When you started thinking about the BraillePen 24, what problem were you trying to solve when developing this product?
The main problem for us was to make the speech mobile. That was already solved in recent times. There are many devices that speak. But in the meantime, we noticed that there is the braille output that needs to be mobile too. And the devices we made in the beginning were not that small. You could say they are pocket devices, but you needed a big pocket. So finally, we said we need to do something smaller and something nicer, because it's not true that blind people don't care for the aesthetics of what they carry. And that's how we decided on making a 24 cell device with the size dictated really by the size of an ergonomic keyboard. And that will be real pocket device.
24 is an interesting choice. There are lots of 20 and 32 and 40 cell products in the market. Why 24?
The size is dictated by the keyboard. We've been working on the Braille keyboard that we now introduced in BraillePen 24 for many years with the previous models, and we made some research on that. And the shape that we offer now is very elaborate and of size of less than 16 centimeters wide. On that distance, you may fit just 24 cells. This is the real reason.
I know from my own experience in product development, we often have to make compromises in order to get a product released, to try and deal with that sort of triangle of quality and price and functionality and all of those things. So what were the non-negotiable points for the team? Which things were you just not prepared to compromise on?
This project took two options into account. We thought we should use the existing, very well-known technology, which is the piezo cells, or something new that will allow us to get much smaller and not looking as a brick. We understood that it really is a risk that we need to take to use the small technology from DOT in Korea. And then at this point, we had a trade-off that we'll explain in a minute, or use the piezo and still produce another brick. So we said, okay, we take the risk, we go this way, and then the size is number one, and the looks has to be perfect. It has to be an iPhone companion. That's how we defined the task for the production designers that we employed. If it comes to the trade-off I mentioned before, we knew that the cells, the first version of the cells, they're called D2, had this problem that if you kept your finger on the cell, it was blocking the change in the contents of the cell. And then it required some clever method to overcome that. We made something. First, we made a special sensor that was refreshing the Braille display immediately in any moment. And second, we made sensors that while you remove your finger, refresh the contents automatically. Apparently, that wasn't sufficient because the first version of BraillePen 24 was not accepted fully because of that problem. Now, with the new DOT incorporated company technology introduced as the D3 cells, this problem is solved. And despite the fact that we had to change the internals of the device and the electronics are completely different. The shape stayed exactly same, and now we have the new version that you won't see any difference from outside, but you will see the difference when you try using it.
We Braille readers are often very particular about the way in which the Braille cells feel. What can you tell us about that in terms of the effort that went into achieving the quality and the responsiveness that you wanted from this product?
We worked very long on the responsiveness. Responsiveness in two ways. First, the keyboard has to be very fast. There are some Braillists that made a challenge to us. And they said at the beginning, hey, when I type, there are no sticking. You have to be able to read my word in a second. So we made the responsiveness on that side. And then the cells itself, the display itself, that is now fixed even better with the D3 cells, because they just by definition work faster and use less time to refresh.
How involved have blind and deafblind people been in the development of the product?
Oh, very much. We started first with a team of blind persons. There was a deaf-blind person in that team too, to choose the technology. And we presented them the trade-off that we had. And they helped us with that a lot. And they emphasized that we're right, that the size will be the most important thing. Later, we introduced the first version of BraillePen 24 in Poland. We showed it to many users. The feedback is transferred into features that we implemented already. Now we do the same thing with the second version, with BraillePen 24 model 2026, that's what we call it. And this model now is in a program called BraillePen 24 Demo for distributors. We distribute the first production run to those companies who will eventually become distributors of the device all over the world, really. And even without any risk, they can try this and tell if this is what they want to deliver to their users.
You talked earlier about being a companion device for the iPhone, but the BraillePen 24 does a little bit more than that. Many listeners will see BraillePen 24 as simply a Braille display, but what else can it do?
We further developed the concept that we already introduced with one of the previous BraillePens, which is all the data, like notes, like email, like your calendar and tasks, can be imported or synchronized with your server, whichever you use, or either Gmail or IMAP, into the device so that you have the data with you. So you can access the data faster if it's already in the device. On top of that, there is a feature of quick notes that are kept in the memory of the device and can be also exported into the SD card that's sitting in the device, and you can get it out. And also you can read books that you can put on that card. So these are features that are different to all the other devices, Braille devices on the market. If you wish, you can have all your data with you.
I understand BraillePen 24 can connect with multiple devices. Can you just talk about some of the real-world scenarios where you think that might be helpful?
We've seen our user using that very efficiently. Very often it's two different iOS devices like iPhone and iPad. Then switching between one and the other is just easy. With one press, the device now informs what device you switched to. I've seen some users very efficiently using this.
When you think about your customers, do you have a particular group in mind for BraillePen 24? You know, students, professionals, people who travel, or is there somebody else that you hope will pick this up?
Yes, all of that you said. With our products that we produce, have this strategy in mind. We produce mounted and Braille tutor. That is an education device that helps learning Braille. We think that tutor is for children starting at 4 or 5, and they will probably finish learning Braille with that tool somewhere about 11 or 12, and that's the perfect time when they can start using BraillePen 24. But another future idea that we have is to connect BraillePen 24 with the Mountbatten Braille tutor, so that you will use the tutor later when you are already proficient in using Braille as a direct Braille embosser from your BraillePen 24 device.
There are, of course, a number of larger Braille note takers, a bit more expensive, I think it has to be said, out there in the market as well. When considering the BraillePen 24, what would you say are the strongest arguments for choosing BraillePen 24?
Of course, the popular formats like 40 or 32 could be more convenient, but more convenient only in one situation, when you are home and you have your desk set up accordingly to the size of the device. 24 is not much smaller than 32. And if we make it possible to connect to our devices, then we will be on the other side of this competition. But 24 is I can't see people complaining that this is too short, as we've seen them with BraillePen 12 or BraillePen 14. That's true. 12 is not okay, although I've seen people reading books with that one. But 24 seems to be just enough for daily use. And the portability and mobility is so important that even on your desk, it takes less space. So I would say it's a trade-off that's worth trying.
Looking back now, what lessons do you think the team learned in the development of this product?
Technically, with the previous BraillePens, we learned that you have to keep some of the tasks in-house. We made that mistake with some previous models that we delegated to other companies, tasks like mold producing, etc., and that was a mistake, we know now.
What do you think is the future of refreshable Braille technology?
Well, we see and try to take part in some research on that field. Of course, there is this solid state technology that's now trying to develop some completely new ways of making dots refresh in due time. There is much to be done yet, but the technology is being developed. And we think that if someone finally finds a solution, then that will allow for further miniaturization. We broke some barrier with the size, but this will be broken even further soon, I think, with the solid state.
Well, I want to congratulate you, Jarek. It's a really beautiful device. I love holding it. Can't wait to spend more time with it. For those listening, how can we find out more about the new Harpo BraillePen 24?
Well, we have a web page for BraillePens, all BraillePens, which is BraillePen.com, just as simple as that. And there you'll find links to contact us and to all the information about BraillePen 24.
Jaroslaw Urbanski, CEO with Harpo, thank you so much for joining us on Raising the Dots.
Thanks a lot.
You're listening to Raising the Dots, connecting you with the people, ideas and technology reshaping the world of Braille and tactile literacy. Now, long-time listeners to the podcast will know the American Council of the Blind is a leading consumer organisation of blind Americans. And here to help us learn more about ACB and the role of ACB when it comes to spreading Braille and tactile literacy, we are joined by Scott Thornhill, who is the Executive Director. Welcome into Raising the Dots, Scott. Fantastic to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Dave. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
I should acknowledge before we get into this that last year, in the summer of 2025, I was invited and accepted a very generous invitation to come and speak at the ACB banquet in Dallas, which was just an amazing occasion, and I really appreciate that opportunity and to share the message, which I think, I was pretty much talking to the choir when it comes to spreading Braille and tactile literacy and, the importance of that in the lives of blind people. So thank you so much for your hospitality, and it was fantastic to hang out with you and all the team. So very much appreciate that.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure to have you, and I got great feedback afterwards. Your message was well received, and it was great to have you there.
Scott, what excites you most about ACB's work right now? Why should people be paying attention?
I think people should be paying attention to the work that we're doing and frankly, work that other organizations are doing. But since I lead ACB, I'll focus on that. The work that we're doing right now is it fits with not just our mission and our core values, but really a message that is important to me and frankly to a lot of folks in the American Council of the Blind. And that is that we meet people, we do our best, I will say, to meet people where they are and help them get where they want to go. And so we don't really look at there being a right way to be blind. And so recently I've been telling people just something that I thought about during our DC leadership conference back in March is a phrase is come be blind with us. You don't have to be blind like us. And so what that does is it opens up opportunities for us to help people that are at different points along the journey of living blind in a world that was not built for us. And so the excitement for me is around our community events platform, where we do about 120 events per week, where people can plug in for all kinds of things, from cooking to book clubs to some religious content to technology, Braille related programming there, just all kinds of things. And what that's done is allowed us to really engage with folks who are at different levels of technology proficiency and different age groups. Also at ACB, as I mentioned, age groups, we have over 60 affiliates. Many of them are state affiliates, but we also have a lot of our special interest affiliates. And so our special interest affiliates run everything from Diabetics in Action, so from one of the leading causes of blindness with diabetes, to professionals, so teachers and attorneys, and then also to our Braille Revival League, and then ACB students up to the Alliance on Aging and Vision Loss, which is an older group of folks. And so there's just a lot right now to be excited about with ACB and really where we're engaging in the public. Because Dave, like I like to tell people, we don't want to just be able to become educated and get transportation to our job. We'd also like to have fun once in a while. And so I think it's important to also look at just that well-rounded life.
Braille literacy remains the cornerstone of independence for many blind people. You mentioned the Braille Revival League there. Tell us a little bit about some of their work and the programs they're advancing.
Yeah, so our Braille Revival League, great organization, and it's BRL are the initials, which many people will understand the importance of that as it relates to Braille. So one of the things that we look at is the importance for young people and others, in terms of the availability of Braille. So, for example, we BRL will have a lot of content coming up at our convention here coming up in July of 2026, and I can go over a little bit of that with you as well. But I'll also say, our advocacy in conjunction with BRL around the Cogswell-Macy Act just got reintroduced in the United States, and so it's a bill that would really carve out more resources for blind students. It doesn't necessarily presume Braille, but that is certainly, our take on it as we advocate for that legislation. But the Braille Revival League itself, we've worked with some companies around packaging and what that looks like in the future. And I'm sure you've been involved in those conversations, but sort of, tactile versus Braille, in which I don't necessarily think it has to be a versus. There's times when it can be a yes and in that regard, but every part of life. So as you're traveling, we advocate and work with our BRL affiliate around sort of, for airlines, for example, and Braille within the planes and Braille in elevators and just the very various elements of that. And then of course the programming that they will provide, because as I mentioned, it's not just about education and work. We also have, my gosh, they have Braille games is one of the sessions they'll have coming up at our convention. So,
did I read somewhere United had just announced Braille seat numbers?
They did. Yeah, they've got the Braille there as you walk through the plane and above the seats. They've got that listed, and so they're, United is doing great work. Delta we work with, American we work with, and a lot of them have focused, Dave, so much, and I'm certainly a quality item to focus on, but many of them have focused so much on in-flight entertainment, but they've focused there on audio description, which you may know, the American Council of the Blind, we have our audio description project, which is a big initiative for us. So that's important. If you can't find your seat and you can't you can't do some of the basic things, then entertainment is going to be an afterthought. They all come together to be important.
We certainly need choices when it comes to accessing information.
That's right.
More widely, what do you think is the biggest misconception that the public has about blindness that our community is helping to change?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think probably the same misperception that I personally had, Dave, and I freely admit it now. There was a time when I was embarrassed to do so, but as I was losing my vision, I have retinitis pigmentosa, RP for short, for those who don't know. But for me, as my vision was leaving me, and I was entering the world of blindness, I would say I did it sort of kicking and screaming, metaphorically. I did not want to be a part of the blind world because growing up, I looked at individuals who were blind or frankly with some other disabilities, and I thought, well, blind people, they can't really do that much. They don't, and it was such wrong thinking, but I believe it's what a lot of people believe, and so therefore, we get the charitable approach to people who are blind or to blindness in general, which is it often can get into helping us, which is great, assistance where we need assistance and all of those things, but it can also be patronizing and things that we don't want, and limiting what we're capable of or what others believe we're capable of, which can lead to limiting our options. And so I think that's something that we're really pushing back against, which is those capabilities and the fact of agency is a word that I started to use more often. So when I'm traveling, I'm in the airport or I'm wherever, and they want to ask the person who's with me. It's the common one you hear from a lot of blind people. They want to ask the person who's assisting you, what kind of chips would he like with that sandwich? And it's like I've known this person for 3 minutes, Dave. They just picked me up at a gate. They don't know what kind of chips I want. I think just those misperceptions around capability. And the tools today, my goodness, the tools that are out there and the technology, it's really increasing more and more what we're capable of doing.
ACB, of course, is an advocacy
Yeah.
organization. Do you have any recent examples of the power of ACB advocacy?
Yeah, I would say we introduced a platform for our members and supporters last year. It's called Speak For, and it is a platform where you can send emails essentially to congressional offices as well as committees. You can do it on a state level and you can do it on a national level. And so we've actually ended up having now quite a few of our affiliates are utilizing this platform on a state level, and then we use it regularly on a national level. And so last year, the beginning of 2025, there was a lot of activity around National Library Service and IMLS in terms of access to Braille books and other materials, and there was pushback on the potential cuts to funding, and a lot of states relied on federal funding for that. And so we leveraged our resources, and our members were very active in pushing back on that, and we've seen some either not moving forward with certain cuts or restoration of certain things around that. And I think that letting our elected officials and others know how important these things are, because even though they've been around for decades, Dave, I think people can take them for granted. And so once something becomes in jeopardy and you start to really hear the passion from people around that. So that's one area. I mentioned the Cogswell-Macy Act now that we're seeking. We haven't gotten a lot of it's gotten reintroduced, but the legislation has, but we're working on advocacy around that. We also have our program where blind vendors, blind business owners can operate dining halls and things on military bases, and there's been some activity there where our federal government has limited that in certain ways for the preference that blind vendors would get, and so we've leveraged there, and we're seeing some action in terms of movement and that being restored. But yeah, it's like advocacy, as you know, is just it's a constant. You have to be persistent, consistent, all of those things, and you don't always get the outcomes you want, but it doesn't mean you stop.
The 65th annual convention of the
Yeah,
American Council of the Blind is just around the corner. We're going to be
yeah,
in St. Louis, Missouri.
yeah.
What are some of the highlights that attendees won't want to miss?
Well, I will say although I have some people who disagree with me on this, we have a virtual week of programming starting Monday, July the 13th. And then we have a week of the 20th where we do some voting and then a board meeting at the end of the week, and then a full week from July 24th through the 31st, in person in St. Louis. And so I tell folks we have a 3-week convention essentially. So almost it feels like almost the entire month of July. But things to look forward to, that of course with ACB, we are a membership organization. So we have voting that's involved, which applies, of course, to members, and that's something that a lot of folks are passionate about. But during that virtual portion, that week of the 13th, I can tell you on Friday the 17th of July, and we've got a lot of Braille Revival League activities in association with our teachers. Special interest affiliate, the BRL affiliate will be putting on a number of activities on the 17th and 18th around sort of just understanding Braille, a little bit about some various devices and things like that. There's a session there about one of our members who is a very avid Braille user who took a trip to Peru and talking about the use of Braille throughout that experience. And so, traveling and then what it's like in different countries and things along those lines. That'll be going on. And of course, our exhibit hall, when you get, and I mentioned the games as well, there's the Braille Games session will be on the 18th. And I think that one's, those kind of things are exciting too, because as I mentioned, we don't always just want to be doing education and work. Occasionally we just have a little fun. But during the in-person element, Dave, as you know from being in Dallas, there's a lot happening. But our exhibit hall will be open with dozens of vendors with various products and services, and many of them related to Braille one way or another. And so that exhibit hall is always popular. And then we have a lot of programming. My gosh, I don't even know at this point how many sessions, probably upwards of 125 or more, total sessions. So we're lots and lots of sessions involved.
How does convention create those opportunities for learning, networking, and community building?
So those opportunities, and I got to tell you, that is why so many folks, despite back in 2020 with the pandemic and our convention, going virtual, we still maintain the virtual component here 6 years later because it became very popular and it meant that people who couldn't afford to travel could still engage with the convention. But I will tell you that that in-person part and that getting together and reuniting with friends that maybe it's been a year. Dave, I know folks that just due to the cost of travel and things, right? This is their vacation, and so this is their time to get together with folks they haven't caught up with in a year or more. And so we have our community events platform that I mentioned earlier. They actually do. They have a room where people can just gather and just be together and talk. And occasionally they'll spontaneously have some games or they'll have other things, but they'll just get together and just catch up with each other. We also have a number of social events. It's not all just around learning and that sort of thing, but social events with a welcome party from our convention host committee, basically. So each location we go to, they have a host committee, and so they'll put on a welcome party that will kind of welcome you to St. Louis in this case. And that's fun, music and other things going on, and then a bar available here and there, Dave. But those opportunities to get together and socialize. We also do a number of tours during our convention that people can take advantage of to go to various sites around the local area. I find that it's often just gathering in the restaurant or gathering in a seating area in the hotel and just talking to people that you haven't caught up with for a while and meeting new people. That's the exhibit hall and other elements there really do help being able to meet new people and engage. And it's something that I have found over the years. You can do all kinds of things online. You can do a lot of virtual things now, of course, but there's nothing quite like being together and meeting someone new and finding out the things you have in common or learning about the things you don't have in common. So,
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for blind people to learn and network with one another. What role can our allies, our friends and families and co-workers and educators play when it comes to spreading Braille literacy and accessibility more widely?
There's a lot certainly that we could unpack there. I would say that I was talking with a group recently around teaching about, for example, trade work, meaning sort of various plumbing and electrical work and HVAC and all of those things. And one of the things that came up in the discussion was around how educators present information and ensuring that there's a universal design in how education is done, and the more universal the presentations are, then the more people, just by definition, sort of the more people you are going to be able to provide the material to. Asking people what it is that's best going to assist them or best going to suit their needs in terms of how they learn. So many times people assume for us what is best for us, and that's something that I believe goes to the earlier question you asked about misperceptions as well. Is people will think, well, this is what I need to do, and they don't ask. And so as it relates to allies and friends, family, all of those sorts of things, is the more they witness the capabilities that we have and the things we're able to do, I believe, and I find it in evidence of it, that people are more and more wanting to make things accessible because they do realize that there's a lot of untapped ability on the sidelines because of inaccessibility.
How do you, Scott Thornhill, perceive the future of tactile accessibility?
Wow, it's changing rapidly from what I can tell. I'm not a technology expert by any means, but I engage quite a bit with products and ways of presenting things and all of that. And I think that it's expanding in terms of the various options. Something that people have talked about for a while is that, the price point of certain Braille options and what that looks like for people who are blind. And it's a challenging situation because we are what would be considered a low incidence disability is the term that would be used. And so the market itself is not necessarily relative to other markets, not a huge market. So therefore, what do those price points look like? And that has been something that's been of issue. But I think as we start to find the new ways that Braille is being presented, new ways that it is being provided, that we're just finding more and more uses for it. And so I think that continued advocacy, that continued passion around the importance of Braille, it is crucial for us as an organization at ACB and we're committed to that wholeheartedly. And I'm just excited. I'm excited about the new things that are sort of out there, and who knows in the future what that will end up looking like. But I think it's just getting more and more exciting.
As we come toward the end of our conversation, if listeners could take away one message about ACB's mission, what would that be?
One thing about our mission and our mission statement is rather lengthy, but it's very clear. We're seeking to increase the independence and the security, the equality of opportunity and the quality of life for people who are blind or who have low vision. And so while that is a wide-ranging and a sort of all-encompassing mission statement, for me, it is not just a one-time, okay, now we've done it. This is a day in, day out, continued effort to advocate for and do our best to support the increasing of opportunities for people who are blind or have low vision, and not judging for individuals what is best for them. But again, I would say meeting people where they are and helping them get where they want to go. Because Dave, we celebrate the one-offs a lot in the blindness community, and even I think folks who are sighted, will look at someone who's blind who accomplishes some amazing feat, and they celebrate that, and we often don't celebrate the smaller victories. And so what I'm looking at is that it's not about some incredible achievement that this one person has done, but it's how do we, meet those folks, all of us, where we are in this journey, and then look at what it is we want to do and not limit ourselves. We've limited ourselves too long, and just help people get where they want to go. So for me, that's what I would say. The one thing is that it's helping individuals reach their desired full potential through all the areas we've talked about.
Anything I've not asked you that you wanted to add in?
Just really excited about our convention and the opportunities that are there, and what will be coming out of that. And folks can certainly engage there. You can go to acbconvention.org and visit that website if you should choose to. But there's a lot of information there, and really just that programming, a lot of effort is put into it. And so there's so much there, and you can plug in with our community at acb.org, and that's that community events platform that I mentioned. And whether you don't have to become a member of ACB, should you choose not to, you can still plug in there and get support. So many people, right, they're depending on where they are, they may be very lonely. We found that out through the pandemic, that there were a lot of very lonely people. And so we have programming there, Dave, on major holidays, because people are often alone. There's no need to be alone. We have those support mechanisms in place to help you be with others.
Well, I know when I worked for ACB as director of ACB Radio, and when I've returned representing various assistive technology companies over the years, I've always been made to feel very welcome at convention. I always feel that ACB is a bit of an extended family feel about it. So looking forward, Scott, to being with you in St. Louis.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it, Dave, and thank you so much for the time.
We appreciate it. And so do join us in the exhibit hall. Dot will be there showing the DotPad X, of course, and our new mnemonic Dot Braille label printer. And we'll be showing various softwares and innovation. So come along, get hands-on, and meet the team. And we'll be delighted to be with you face-to-face at the 65th annual convention of the American Council of the Blind. Scott Thornhill, Executive Director, thank you so much for joining us here on Raising the Dots.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
That's it. That's all we've got for you this month on Raising the Dots. Thank you to everyone who is coming along to meet us at the various events. If you'd like to keep across what DOT are up to and where we're going to be, you can visit our blog. That's blog.dottingcorp.com. That's blog.dottingcorp.com. But for now, from myself, Dave Williams, and the rest of the Raising the Dots team, bye for now.